So when we talk about diversity, particularly workplace diversity, it's not just race and gender. It's all the ways that we're different, but all the ways that we're also similar. It includes our values, our preferences, our backgrounds, our experiences, our orientations, our beliefs. So diversity is all of us. Diversity is not just the 10% of those things that we see above the waterline. I love to use this graphic as I talk about what diversity means, because scientists say that 10% of what makes up an iceberg is above the waterline, but 90% of what we can't see is below the waterline. And if the Titanic had known that, it would not have sank. So when we look at this iceberg here, we oftentimes make decisions based on what we see. We've been conditioned, we've been programmed to make quick snap judgments, first impressions within the first 3 seconds. You're looking at me now. I've been out here on the stage about 5 minutes or so, and you already made assessments about who is she? Does she know anything? What is she going to say to us? Is she engaging? Yes. Is she cute? Yes. Is she well-dressed? Yes. All those things. We're making these quick snap judgments and assessments in the first 5 minutes. But we also make these assessments when we got to make decisions in the workplace. Who do we hire? Who don't we hire? Who do we like? Who do we invite out? Who gets the choice assignments? Who do we promote? Who do we give better ratings to? Who do we go out and go for drinks after work with? Who do we sit down at lunch with or invite out to dinner? Who do we go play golf with? I want you to think about who are your go-to people inside of your organizations. More than likely, you're hanging around and giving better ratings and hiring more people who are just like you. That's human nature. We tend to do that. I've been in human resources over 30 years, and I know the like me syndrome, because we all, as human nature, we believe that we're wonderful, we're special, we're smart, we're great. And people who are not like me, well, it's those people. So we tend to hire people who are like us. When we look at diversity in its broadest sense, and we realize that there's visible diversity that we do see, but we have to get beyond what we see and recognize that every single one of us in here has something in common, likely things that you don't see. Gilbert is a white male. Would you stand up, please? Close enough, right? Gilbert is a white male. We look as different as night and day. I'm really cute and he's okay, right? If Gilbert and I got to talking, I guarantee you we would find some things that we had in common, whether it was we have children, or whether we traveled to the same locations, or our hobbies, or maybe where we grew up, or things that we love to do after work. Thank you, Gilbert. And so what we find is that we have to build relationships. We have to interact with each other, and we have to be willing to engage with people who don't look like us. Even at first glance, we assume they have nothing in common with us. So when we talk about diversity and inclusion, recognizing that there's so much more that meets the eye, that's beneath the surface, that's underneath the chapters of the book. And we have to, as leaders, recognize that even though we have diversity, we may not have inclusion. And that's the problem where a lot of companies are, and that's where I come in as a consultant. I've been a Chief Global Diversity and Inclusion Officer for 4 major Fortune 50 and Fortune 100 companies. I worked in financial services, I worked in retail sales, I worked in banking, I worked in the energy, utility companies, and then I've also worked in associations. I also now work with governments, government agencies. I work with a lot of associations. Many of my clients now are associations, going through the same kind of transitions and going through reinvention and transformations in their culture and their policies and their systems, and particularly in developing their leaders. So I ask the question all the time to them, how many of you know that you can have diversity and not have inclusion? And that's the problem, is that we want to get more of them. We want to hire people who we don't have. We want to hire more women and people of color or underrepresented groups. And that's a great thing, but we can't stop there, because now companies go out and hire a lot of great diverse talent, and the culture doesn't embrace them. The culture isn't welcoming. The culture isn't inclusive. And so we look at companies now, because they've done a lot of great hiring around diversity, they haven't trained their leaders on how do you be more inclusive? How do you build a greater level of cultural competence and cultural sensitivity? How do you build the skills and the competencies that will help you build a great heterogeneous team and a diverse team that can outperform homogeneous teams, according to a number of studies? So as we think about inclusion, recognizing that inclusion is all about the culture. Diversity just is. Everybody in here is diverse. Yes, even the white guys are diverse. But that hasn't been a part of the conversation in the past. And we've, in a way, alienated many of them, and they felt excluded from the conversation. But everyone is diverse. The problem is not every company's culture is inclusive.